Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Women in Engineering webinar today, where today we're going to focus on the experience of women in engineering. So in this session, you're going to hear from some of our current female identifying students from the UBC Okanagan and Vancouver campuses. I'd like to thank you all for joining us here today for this important conversation. So my name is Franco Fung, and I'm the Student Recruitment Officer for UBC Engineering at the UBC Vancouver campus. I do use he, him pronouns, and I'm going to be one of your hosts today. Now, before we dive into today's session, I would like to start off by speaking about the lands that both of our campuses sit on. So both of our campuses are on the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples who've lived here for thousands of years. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land that UBC has built its Vancouver campus on, the place where we work, learn, connect, and innovate, is on the unceded ancestral and traditional territories of the Musqueam peoples. And now I'd like to introduce our co-host today, Marie, to introduce our Okanagan campus.
Hey everyone, my name is Marie, like Franco said. I'm an engineering advisor from the UBC Okanagan campus, and my pronouns are she, her. A little bit about me, I graduated from the UBC Okanagan campus in mechanical engineering, and I went work in the field for a few years before returning to do graduate studies, where I got the privilege to work with forest fire pilots to help them understand their fatigue. And during this time, I started doing outreach for engineering, which led me into the role that I'm here today. I'm super happy to be here with everyone today to talk about women in engineering and the experiences at UBC. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that UBC Okanagan is situated in the territory of the Syilx Okanagan Nation and their peoples. I would also like to acknowledge that you may be joining us today from many places near and far, and acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of those lands. And now I'm going to pass it back to Franco for our introduction.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie. So just a few notes before we dive into today's session. So just a few reminders of the different functions available to you through the Zoom platform to help you customize your experience with us today. So for example, if you're finding that you can't hear us very well right now, if you're experiencing any audio or video issues, you can adjust these through the audio video settings, which can be found at the bottom of your screen. So make sure you're selecting the right speakers and for the sound to come through. If you are still experiencing any issues, please let us know and we'll do our best to help you troubleshoot. Of course, this session is for you, so please feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A box, which should also be found at the bottom of the screen. My ask is that you submit your question once, so we have an opportunity to get to it. So let us know if you have any questions. If you need, closed captioning is also available for you here today. That's also available through one of the options at the bottom of your screen. So you can enable that by clicking on the closed captioning button. And finally, if you're not able to stay with us through the entire session, that's okay. A recording of this full session will be shared with all of our registrants post-event and also available on our YouTube channels at UBC Engineering and also at the UBC Okanagan Engineering YouTube page as well. So it's great to see so many potential future UBC engineers, female identifying UBC engineers with us here today. But we do want to get to know you a little bit more. I see someone has already popped something in the chat. So let us know, where are you joining us from today? Are you joining us here in BC? Are you from another part of Canada, another province or territory, or somewhere else around the world? Let us know in the chat. It's always great to see kind of where everyone is joining us from. UBC gets applications from thousands and thousands of students from all across the world. So it's always nice to see kind of who is with us here today. Let's see. Okay, so we see a couple of guests from Calgary, Alberta, San Fran, Seattle, someone from Jakarta, Indonesia. I see a few others from Ontario, some more local in Surrey, Massachusetts. Amazing. Thank you everyone for joining us here and yeah, continue letting us know where you're joining us from in the chat. All right, so you've already met myself and Marie. So we'll go over a couple of notes before we turn over to our students, and later on you'll hear from our students, Chloe, Ellie, Nora, and Mahak, about their experience as a women in engineering. So we'll bring them back in just a little bit. So on our agenda today, I'm going to go over some frequently asked questions. If you have already applied, you might have some of these questions, so hopefully I'm able to provide you with some answers. After I wrap up, I'm going to turn it over to Marie to start the discussion with our current students. And then, of course, we're going to take questions directly from you to wrap up our session today. So if you've already applied, you might be thinking, what's next? So let's go over some of the questions that you might be thinking of right now. So of course, the top question is always that we're getting is when will I hear back? Majority of decisions continue to roll out. So UBC is continuing to issue decisions on a rolling basis. If you apply by our deadline of January 15th, you should be able to receive a decision on your application by the end of April. So of course, you can always stay up to date on your application by checking your ASC, so your Applicant Service Center, regularly. Any updates to your application will be shared there first. Now, in the scenario where UBC may require more documents from you or additional information before making a decision on your application, we'll notify you through the Applicant Service Center. So if you do receive that communication, please read through those communications and instructions carefully, because UBC will share which documents that they require and how you should be submitting them. So please, again, take a look at those communications so you're staying up to date on your application. Now, another question that we're getting right now is about scholarships. So scholarship decisions are being issued right now. So they start being shared in mid-March, and they will continue to the end of April. If you are a successful candidate for a scholarship, you will be notified by email. So they'll let you know again through your Applicant Service Center. The next question is about housing. So if you are planning to come to UBC, you might be looking at living on campus. So my advice is, depending on which campus you're going to, either the Vancouver or Okanagan campus, is to visit each of those campus housing websites. So we do offer a first-year housing guarantee. So the deadline to apply for first-year housing for that first-year guarantee is May 1st. So make sure you have your application for housing in by then. I will be sharing some links to, if you are interested in looking more into applying for on-campus housing. I'll share those links in the chat in just a few moments for both campuses. And finally, to wrap up, I've already kind of mentioned this already. Check your email regularly for any updates on your application. Make sure you're reading all of your communications carefully and thoroughly, because there's a lot of important information there. And then if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. At the end of this presentation, we're also going to share some email addresses, so you know where to direct your question to. All right, I think that's it for me. I'm going to turn it over now to Marie to get the conversation started.
Thanks so much, Franco. So now I would like to welcome Chloe, Ellie, Nora, and Mehek to join us back on screen. We're really happy to have you all here today with us to share a little bit about your engineering journey and your experience as a woman in engineering. So before we get into some of our questions, we want to just take a minute for each of you to have some time to introduce yourself. So we're going to start with that. And the first person I'd like to welcome to do that is Chloe.
Hi everyone, I'm Chloe. I'm a third-year materials engineering student at the UBC Vancouver campus, and I am also the current VP Communications of the Engineering Undergraduate Society at the Vancouver campus. And next year, I will be a co-president for the Materials Undergraduate Council for my program, and I've also been involved in different clubs and design teams. I lived on residence in my first year, and I currently live off campus now, and I'm going on exchange next year to Glasgow.
Thank you, Chloe. Now I'm going to pass it over to Ellie.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm in my third year of biomedical engineering, also at the UBC Vancouver campus. I'm a design team lead right now on the Sustain Engineering student-led design team, as well as a member of the Engineers Without Borders Access Venture, and a member of the Women in Engineering Committee, and a good member of Gears and Queers as well. I lived in residence on first year, and I'm currently also living off campus.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure we'll have questions about residence living as well. That's always a very common topic. All right, over to you, Nora.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nora. I'm in my third year of electrical engineering at UBC Okanagan. I'm a work study student with the Engineering Stories, hey, shameless plug, at the UBCO campus. So if you follow us there, you may have seen my face already. I'm also involved with a couple clubs on campus, and I like to see what I can get up to around there. And I was also on residence my first year, but I'm off campus now.
Thank you so much, Nora. And lastly but not least, Mehek.
Hi everyone, my name is Mehek. I'm in my second year of mechanical engineering at UBC Okanagan, and I like to be involved on campus as well. Like Nora, I'm also a work study student, so I work as a student ambassador with the School of Engineering, and I'm also involved with the Women in Engineering Club here on campus as vice president.
Awesome. So thank you all for that quick introduction. I'm just going to stop sharing here before we get into our panel. Perfect. Then we can see everyone here. Awesome. So we're going to just start into a few of our set panel questions, and everyone who's here joining us today, while we're going through some of these questions, please feel free to ask us any questions in the Q&A like Franco had mentioned earlier. We will start answering those questions as soon as we have these prepared questions finished. So as we're going through them, please feel free to ask your questions there. So the first question today is for Nora and Chloe. And the question is, what factors influenced your decision to pursue engineering? And how did you decide it was the right fit for you? So we're going to start with Nora for this one.
Sure. So I chose engineering mostly because I knew I loved STEM. And when I was researching different options of ways I could get into a STEM field, I think it was a John Green video that I stumbled on that explained what is engineering as a whole. And kind of pre that video, in my head, a lot of engineers had been sort of like a train director, and I hadn't really realized what engineering could really do or be for me. So once I saw that, I did a lot of research into what's involved in being an engineer, what is it like, how would this path, resonate with me and the things that I'm passionate about. And it just seemed like a really good fit with all of the STEM and the high level classes that I was really interested in. So that's kind of what drew me in. I think the selling point for me was that I think statistically almost 60% of astronauts have an engineering degree. So it kind of made a lot of sense in my brain of this must be something that's really worthwhile to do if all these really cool people are doing it. And once I applied, it was kind of all history from there, and I really love it so far.
Thanks so much for sharing. And I saw in your intro slide, you had a picture of something to do with astronauts. So maybe we can hear a little bit more about that later, but I feel like that's quite a passion for you. So thanks for sharing your story a little bit, Nora. Now I'm going to pass it over to Chloe.
I have a similar experience in that I've always liked science and math since, honestly, I can't even remember. So I wanted to continue that. I originally wanted to go into a science program, but then I discovered engineering, still not really knowing what it was when I actually applied, but I knew that I felt like with engineering, I'm able to use science and math to create bigger impacts because it's applied science. But then another thing is I actually went to an arts focused high school. So I worked a lot with like sculpture and textiles. And so now that I'm in materials engineering, originally I didn't know that I wanted to do materials engineering, which is also why I chose UBC because of the general first year program. But since I discovered materials engineering and I've been in the program, I've really loved it. And it's opened up a lot more opportunities and even a way to connect my arts background with my love for science and math, in that I can work in textiles as there's a lot of research for nanofibers. I actually went on a tour of the Lululemon facility this morning to learn about that. So I really love what I'm doing, and that's kind of my journey.
Thanks so much for sharing, Chloe. And I really love how you brought in your personal experience with arts and engineering, because that's something we get lots of questions about. And very jealous you had a tour this morning with Lululemon. So that's a very cool opportunity you can have as an engineering student. So thank you so much for sharing. The next question we have here is for Ellie and Mehek. And the question is, can you describe your experience as a woman in engineering at UBC? And have you faced any unique challenges? And if so, how have you navigated them? So we're going to start with Ellie for this one.
So honestly, I think nowadays it's a lot easier to be a woman in Eng. I know in my first year, I had a friend group that was very 50-50 female identifying and male identifying. And it just kind of felt very natural. But as it progressed, I found myself where I am the only woman in a classroom, an engineering classroom filled with all other men, which is a little intimidating at times. I've also had a lot of team projects where I've been the only woman on it. It's definitely something that is noticeable, but as you go, you kind of get more used to it. It's a kind of thing of confidence as well as just reminding yourself why you're here and why you want to be here. Yeah.
Thank you, Chloe. I really appreciate you sharing sort of your experience in different scenarios and sort of how you have worked through those scenarios with your experience at UBC. So I'm going to pass over to Mehek to share her views on this question as well.
Yeah, so I agree with Ellie that it can be a little bit intimidating sometimes being a woman engineering just because it is a career and a classroom that is very male dominated. But I feel like something that I've noticed is that it can be something that's seen as a challenge and it can be challenging at times, but it also has really forced me to find a better community. And I think that being in a minority, it makes a lot of women who are in engineering so eager to share about their experiences, to help younger women in engineering, and to create those supports that to make other people be able to thrive. And I know that whenever I speak to older women in engineering, they're always so generous and so excited to talk about their experiences and help me and mentor me. So I think that's one really good outcome of it. It can definitely be challenging being the only woman in a group project or in a classroom, but there's definitely some positive sides to that as well too.
Thanks, Meg, and I appreciate you sharing just the mentorship opportunities, and what I was getting from that is the close-knit community that the women in engineering have at our campuses. So thanks so much for highlighting that. The next question is back over to Nora and Chloe, and the question is, how have you built connections with other women in engineering? And what kinds of networks or clubs and groups have you found been the most beneficial for you? Let's start with Chloe for this one.
For sure. I'd say how I've built connections with other women has been through showing up at different events or different clubs or getting involved with the society. And I've been lucky in that I have a close group of friends in my materials classroom, and we're all women, so we all sit together and we kind of stick together from that. So once I found them, we just and it kind of like glue, we just stay together. And then through the society that I'm in as well. Although actually I would say the ratio is kind of 50-50. Sometimes it feels male dominated, but with my peers who are female identifying, just because, again, as Mehek said, because we are a minority, it is it's a lot easier to kind of feel that connection and just form a bond with them in that way. So I've kind of made connections that way, and then other clubs and networks that are really beneficial on campus, especially for Vancouver, or sorry, just in general, is there's the Women in Engineering Club, and then there's also just other AMS clubs that I see as well that are very female focused, and general UBC clubs, and sometimes I'll meet other women in engineering through that as well.
Thanks, Chloe. Really nice for you to share your experience in materials engineering, but also just for students across any engineering program, that there are sort of different experiences and groups and resources that students can reach out to and meet other women engineers from other programs and really cross network within their own community. So thanks so much for sharing. Now I'm going to pass it over to Nora.
Sure. I can speak to the experience of being in electrical engineering. And as of Jumpstart in the first couple days in classes, I think myself and the few other women in my program really kind of banded together. and there was a really fast friendship that was formed there, and it's lasted at least 3 years for me. So it's definitely, even outside of clubs, those do help a lot, admittedly, ways that if you're in the same lectures and you're in the same community, a lot of the time, in my experience, women will band together. And I've definitely had the experience of sitting in a row of all the 10 girls in the classroom grouping together and kind of being a little group. And it's honestly a really strong bond that's formed when there's a little bit less of you, because everyone knows what it's like and everyone understands each other. There's kind of a shared experience there that we can all call on for a bond. So I've definitely found that to be really impactful. In terms of groups on campus, Maha can probably speak to this a little further, but the Women in Engineering Club is a really, really cool group of women that I would absolutely recommend getting involved with. I love going to their events, and I have a ton of friends that are involved in the club, so that's a really cool group of women. And any, I'd say, design teams or groups on campus where you could make friends normally, it's pretty easy to spot out the other girls there and kind of band together. So just general socialization events on campus are definitely an easy way to do it. I think that's, in my experience, at least how it happened for me.
Thanks, Nora, and I'm really glad that you also brought up Jumpstart, because Jumpstart, which is it's a week long or sometimes a few day long, right before the start of your classes that new incoming students can attend. It's a really great opportunity to meet other students who are new to campus, and a lot of students make their first friends at Jumpstart or at Create at the Okanagan campus, or Imagine UBC at the Vancouver campus. So a lot of great connections there, as Nora mentioned, that she met some of her friends at Jumpstart as well. So the next question we have here is back over to Mehek and Ellie. The question is, how would you describe the learning environment in UBC engineering? And what kind of resources does UBC provide to help your academic success? So we're going to start with Mehek for this one.
I would say that I've had a very positive learning experience here. I think that something that, especially in like my first year of engineering, a lot of our professors emphasized is that we are coming into a completely new learning environment, and there's going to be a lot of struggle, and we're here to learn, not to succeed on the first try. So I think that's been really important to remember and like try and reflect on. And there's a couple of really good resources that have helped me. First of all is like going to professors' office hours. I know it's like very like generic advice, but it's very good advice because it really does help with forming a bond with your professors, but also just getting that one-on-one like feedback. We also have the Student Learning Hub here on campus, and they provide free tutoring from upper year students. So in my first year, I had to like miss a couple of weeks of school for other like things or times that I was out of town. And I kind of had no idea how to even begin catching up. And going to the Student Learning Hub and having that one-on-one support really helped me in like getting caught up again. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mehek. I appreciate you sharing some of those resources that worked for you for those that academic success. I do have a follow-up question I'm going to ask, but I'm going to pass it over to Ellie first to share her experiences for these first two questions.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think as well, very similar to the Okanagan campus, it is a really positive learning experience. It is also, I like how you said that, Mehak, about it being a chance to learn rather than succeed on the first try. I think UBC does a really good job in providing students the opportunity to create these spaces. So very similar to the Learning Center, the Engineering Undergrad Society on the Vancouver campus holds tutoring sessions with upper year students. Also, the AMS provides free tutoring. But I think as well is the UBC Vancouver campus does a really good job of providing students with the opportunity to go and create organizations and like clubs such as like Women in Engineering to create these spaces for students, and really puts a positive emphasis on finding those people and giving back to the community.
That's great. Thank you so much. Like at either campus, like what Mehak and Ellie were saying, there's lots of opportunities for supports and resources for academic success, as well as lots of great ways to find your community. We do have a follow-up question for both of you related to this, and that is, how do you advocate for yourself in a male-dominated space, whether that's in the classrooms, labs, or working on team projects? Maybe we'll start with you, Ellie, because you're still on the screen for me, so we'll start there.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that one is one you kind of need to be thrown into to learn. I myself found a lot. Last year, I had a term project where I was the only girl on a team. And I kind of felt like I needed to prove something to everyone on that team. But I also feel like a lot of times it feels like I need to prove something to myself in these like male dominated fields where that's really just kind of a belief I have for myself. And a lot of like women coming into engineering also have that where they feel they need to prove something to be here. But I think it is really just about knowing that you belong in this space. You are being able to be in engineering is incredible, and bringing like passion and energy is going to be really all you need. There's not like there's no exact answer to that. It's definitely you need to have the confidence to speak up on your behalf and have that confidence to say, hey, this is like my space too. But I also do believe that it is a space that we should feel welcome and we should feel like we belong. So I think it's still something you got to learn, but it comes pretty naturally.
Thanks so much, Ellie, and I'm really glad you brought up the point of sometimes you feel like you need to prove something, or like with those projects or different aspects of your degree, and that's super normal. And it's really nice to hear you sharing that experience, because it's always helpful when you hear that from your peers, so you know you're not alone in that feeling. Now I'm going to pass it over to Mehek to share your thoughts as well.
Yeah, like I would say that sometimes there can be cases where you might be doing a project and you might feel like because you're a woman, you're assigned tasks that you might not have wanted to do, or you're not getting what you might want out of the project, or you feel like your voice isn't being heard. So I definitely agree with Ellie that it's really important to advocate for yourself, and in those moments, remember why you're in engineering and that you belong in engineering, and just like use your voice. And a lot of people are very willing to like listen and hear you out. So as long as you are like using your voice and trying to like emphasize what you want to get out of the project and making sure that things are fair for everyone.
Thanks so much, Mehek, and I appreciate you bringing that up as well. And as I know you're part of the Women Engineering Club, I know that's a great support for if you have any questions or you're in a scenario like that and you just want to chat with some peers to see how it's been approached in the past with different types of projects or in the classroom. So thanks for sharing your experience and experiences of what you've seen from other women in engineering. So appreciate that. So we've already come to our last question that's like pre-done for the panel here today. So this question is for all of our panelists, and then I can see that there's questions coming in the Q&A, so we're going to move over to those afterwards. So the last question for our panel right now is, how do you envision your role as a woman in engineering after graduation? What kinds of career opportunities or projects excite you the most? So we're going to start with Chloe for this one.
I think I'm going to start with the second part of the question first, in that some kind of career opportunities or projects that excite most would be, like as I mentioned, I went on the Lululemon tour this morning, so doing something similar to that would be really cool, or and becoming like a project manager. Also within materials, something that I kind of want to look into is forensics engineering. So there's so many different opportunities, and it's almost limitless as long as you put yourself out there. And then as a woman in engineering after graduation, I will say that the ratio of women to men in the field is a lot. The gap is a lot bigger. But again, like the previous question, you just have to have the confidence to advocate yourself, know that like you put in the work, you graduated, you'll have your iron ring, and you belong, you deserve to be there.
Thanks, Chloe. I really appreciate you sharing your experience from at academically, and then also like seeing things in the workforce in different ways. So I appreciate you sharing that perspective, and we're all super excited to see what you do after you graduate in materials engineering. So I'm gonna pass it over to Nora next.
Okay, I'll start with the first part of the question first, which was how do you envision your role as a woman in engineering post-grad? And in many ways, I agree with Chloe. I thought what she said was really well put. I guess I'll kind of start with an anecdote. When I was on co-op, I worked at a company called MDA. They did the Canadarm. So it was a space astronautics company, which is, I know, on brand. But working there, I was really lucky to have a super positive sort of first internship co-op experience over the summer last summer. And working on my team, it was a major international project called the SKA MID, which is a radio telescope. So I was working on the wave beam correlator for that, which was a Python code base. And there's a lot of kind of hierarchy in how the project works with a science mega project like that. It's an international project. There's people working on it all across the world. It's based in South Africa and the UK. So while there's probably several thousand people working on it in total, there were about 40 people on my team at the company. Within that 40-person team, there was myself, 2 other interns who were both guys, and approximately 5 women. 2 of those women were full-time online, and 2 of them were in the office. And when I showed up on my first day, I was horrified and very nervous, and it was my first work experience. And by the 3rd day, they had set me up a spot in their office and taken me under their wing and brought me into their little kind of sanctuary. And they had snacks and they brought me to get tea. And whenever the team had stand up every day, they would be like, Nora, come hang out in our office. We'll help walk you through what's going on. When I had questions about the project and I was like, I can't get this for loop to run, those women were like, don't worry, here's my laptop. Let's pull up your code base. I'll work through it together. They were partially like told to be my mentors at the company, which was half the reason they did it. But the other half the reason was they told me that when I graduate and I get into the field, that they wish that I would do the same thing for whatever young women are interning under me at my company. And that was really impactful for me because it made me realize I can't wait to graduate and have some horrified 19-year-old walk into my office and to be able to say, it's okay, you deserve to be here. It's okay that you don't know what you're doing. Let me sit down and help you with this. It's going to be all right. And I think those women really shaped, regardless of the project or the company that I work at, the type of woman I want to be in the workforce. Because while the team was very male dominated, especially in an industry like astronautics, it was dominated by everyone had PhDs and masters in astrophysics, and I was very intimidated. But those women really kind of made me realize wherever I end up, I want to be able to do that. So I think that's kind of my reasoning. And then what kind of projects excite me? That was a really cool project to work on. I'd love to work in space, but every time I see something new in my degree, I'm like, oh, but that's cool too. So really, who knows? That's kind of my take.
Thank you, Noah. I really appreciate you sharing that personal anecdote from your experience. And it's such a strong message that you shared today about that the power of really having great mentors when you're in the field and building off of that. And it's just so exciting to hear that you had such a great experience. So thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to pass it over to Ellie now.
Yeah, I honestly don't think I could say that better than how Nora said it. I think being able to go into the engineering space and provide like that kind of space is incredible. And definitely something that motivates myself as well. Yeah, I honestly couldn't say anything more than Nora just did. For myself, like project and opportunity wise, I think I'm kind of really getting to see it right now in my undergraduate degree. I'm part of a venture under Engineers Without Borders, in which we're trying to work on a less invasive HPV test for women in sub-Saharan Africa, which is very much the field I want to go into as biomedical engineering. I want to be able to apply it for women's health. And I think being able to see that we can work on it in our undergraduate is really cool. And it kind of gives me the feeling of the like hands-on experience that I know I will get to do in the future. And that's just, and it's really also cool to see that there is space for research into more of women's health. So those are kind of the projects that really excite me.
Thanks, Ellie. Thanks for sharing that project as well. That sounds very exciting, and it's just really amazing to see all the different avenues of engineers and the different projects they get to work on. So thanks so much for sharing. And lastly, Mahek, anything you'd like to add? Any projects or different things that excite you that you want to share?
Yeah, I think that what everyone said was very insightful, and like I agree with what everyone was saying as well. I know that like being in like growing up in like middle school and high school, especially having women who were older than me who believed in me and just thought that I could succeed in whatever I put my mind to, that really supported me a lot. That made me feel like that I belonged in engineering, that engineering was something that I could pursue even though it is male dominated. So that's something that I definitely want to bring forward throughout my career as well. Like for example, in the Women in Engineering Club, we often do events with faculty, and those are to bring like faculty and undergraduate students together for like mentorship. And those conversations of seeing faculty who have achieved so much success in engineering and so much success as like being women in a male-dominated field has been so inspiring to see. So I hope that like throughout my career, I can also inspire people and like help guide the next generation of women in engineering as well. And then for the second part of the question of like which projects I'm interested in, I'm very like interested in pretty much anything. I feel like I really like learning as much as I can about everything around me. So I really want to use engineering to explore more about like how the world works, how the universe works, like through like space engineering or engineering physics fields. But I also really like that engineering can be used to help a lot of people through the biomedical field. So I hope that I can do like a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So many different interests and so many different avenues. It sounds like you have a lot of great choices, Mac, that you can look forward to exploring more. So like I said earlier, that wraps up the predetermined questions. And so I'm gonna just quickly switch over to the Q&A here and scan a few questions and start picking some out to ask you all. For these, I'm not going to direct specifically to any of the panelists. I'm going to ask the question and you guys feel free to unmute yourselves, okay? If you would like to answer the question. Sounds good? Perfect. Awesome. So the first question is, how is the learning experience at UBC? Is it more focused on practice than theory? Or the other way around, theory than practice, or is it balanced?
I can start off with that one. I would say definitely in first year, it's a lot more theory as like at the Vancouver campus, you take courses that are like math, so calculus, integrals, a chemistry course, which is a lot of theory for chemistry, but engineering focused, and your physics theory courses. And then you have two design courses. So you do have that like practical aspect starting off in first year. And then as you move up in your degree and you pick your discipline, I think it becomes a bit more balanced. And then for each program, you have at the end of your degree a capstone project. So that one is very practical, but of course you need that theory that you've learned throughout your degree to complete that project. So it is very theory heavy at the beginning, and then I would say it balances out. It is also, sorry, one more thing that it is also discipline dependent too, because some disciplines are a bit more research focused. So I would say that does have a little bit more of the theory side, but you get a hands-on experience.
Thank you so much, Chloe. And yeah, like Chloe said, a lot more theory at the beginning. The great thing to balance it out a little bit in first year is not like a 50-50 balance, but at either campus, you do have two courses that are focused on engineering design. So I don't know, Chloe or Ellie, do either of you want to talk about the engineering design courses at the Vancouver campus in first year?
Yeah, for sure. So the courses on the UBC Vancouver campus are AppSci 100 and AppSci 101. There is a little different route if you are in the pre-biomedical engineering timetable, which I took, in which case AppSci 101 is replaced with BMeg 101. Both very similar in idea, but basically AppSci 100 is a course where you get to work with other first-year engineers, and you're given a few different projects. One of my favorites being the cardboard chair project, where you get to kind of optimize a cardboard chair with various like regulations and whatnot around it, but there's a lot of creativity and a lot of hands-on. What I think they do really well in that course is they do balance a lot of the like design theory as well as that hands-on experience. So a lot is how Chloe said, the first couple of years are much more theory heavy. And I think AppSci 100, AppSci 101, and BMeg 101 do a really good job of balancing the design theory, the theory and kind of almost background stuff that goes into designing a project, as well as with those kind of hands-on things. And then AppSci 101 and BMeg 101 are continuations of AppSci 100, just with a bit different projects, bit different groups, little bit of a different setup and a bit more focus on that hands-on.
Thank you so much, Ellie. I appreciate you giving us some insight, like a sneak peek into what those courses are like. And I also want to invite Mehek or Nora, if you want to talk about the AppSci 169, AppSci 171 first year courses. They're pretty much the equivalent courses at the Okanagan campus, but do either of you want to share a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, sure. So I could talk a little bit about the first year courses. So the first one is like our 169, which is Fundamentals of Sustainable Engineering. And that one focuses on engineering through like a sustainable lens. And what I really liked about that course is it talked a lot about the role of engineers in ensuring that like the designs we create are sustainable and are going to benefit people. And through that, we had to create a project. I think the theme varies every year, so Nora might have had a different theme than me, but our theme was something that reduces waste. So me and my lab members, we designed a new type of shampoo bottle that uses copper instead of using like traditional plastic. And then our other course is AppSci 171, which is engineering design using computer-aided design. So we used SolidWorks and we had to create something that would help with preventing forest fires or just addressing the issue of forest fires. And in the Okanagan, that's a very big issue because we've been deeply affected by forest fires over the last few years. So it was a very relevant project. And so for that, me and my group members designed a wildfire detection and prevention system. And we got to present it to a bunch of different people from the faculty and also from the community, which is really nice.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really nice to hear about the design aspects of engineering because it's really fun that you guys all get to jump in and design something right from your first term. And I know for me, when I get to go to those competitions or the showcases at the end of the year, it's super fun to see what all of our first year engineering students have come up with for these real world problems or for the cardboard chair. It's just a really exciting time and you can feel the excitement and energy from the students. So thanks so much for sharing, everyone. The next question is sort of along the same lines. This person is asking, what aspects other than STEM are required or maybe you have gained throughout your degree to learn or do engineering? So are there any like other soft skills, technical skills outside of STEM that you want to share that are applicable or you found to be useful in engineering?
I can start this one off if you guys don't mind there. I think one of the biggest skills I have learned and that they do really encourage is the use is communication and teamwork. A lot of times engineering is very kind of portrayed as just working alone in a little office, like designing things, but it's very much not that. Like it is a very collaborative discipline. It is something that you're going to be working with a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. And I think group projects can be rough at times, but it also is really good to learn a lot of the like soft skills coming with working with other people.
Yeah, I can second that. And that communication is definitely one of the most important skills, not only just like for engineering, but in life. And also specifically the ability, like if you're in an engineering field or a very technical or specialized field, the ability to communicate that like the technical terms that you know and all that information to someone who doesn't have the same background as you. So to take the technical information and communicate it in a way that's a bit more general or in a way that your audience understands, and knowing your audience and then having to switch that up depending on who you're talking to or what it is that you're explaining. And even today on that tour, one of the industry professionals said this exact same thing, and that they have to do that almost every day in their jobs and communicate the technical aspects in a non-technical way.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I really liked how Ellie and Chloe put it. I liked the emphasis on collaboration because that can't be understated first and foremost. It's so important to be able to work in a group and to communicate your ideas clearly and effectively. I think beyond that as well, it can't be understated how important creativity is as an engineer. I think being able to sort of express yourself and bring in a multidisciplinary perspective is super valuable, especially when you're graduating as an engineer. It might seem counterintuitive, but I would say that a lot of the experiences that have made me feel more confident as an engineering student and as an engineer are things that are completely separate from just doing equations or getting my code to run. Experiences like English classes in high school with really good teachers who taught me the proper skills to write and work in teams and be creative and come up with ways to express myself, as well as art and creativity in that aspect of working in groups for like a common goal creatively. I think that those are also super important and almost just as applicable to a STEM engineering job as being really good at crunching numbers. There's a time and place for both, and being able to do both is what's going to really elevate you as a worker and make you a really strong candidate in the field.
That's great. I appreciate all of you sharing those different skills. And like, I truthfully don't have anything else to add because I feel like all of the soft skills that you guys talked about today are super important in engineering. That's how we're able to work together as teams within engineering, but with many other departments, and we go into the field. So thank you all for sharing. I also just wanted to plug Nora a little bit, as you can see some of her creative side on the Engineering Stories channel, as she makes lots of different videos showcasing engineering at the UBC Okanagan campus. So another way that you can be an engineer and have some additional fun in art creative side.
Can I add something on to that as well?
Of course, Chloe. Yes, go for it.
Yeah, at the I'm not sure about the Okanagan campus, but at the Vancouver campus with the undergraduate society, I currently run the communications portfolio, but that also includes doing stuff like running our social media accounts, making graphics for that, and our yearbook. So this year we're doing like a Taylor Swift inspired cover, but it's with like, instead of her squares from the album, it's previous scans of like old slipsticks from the 50s. And then we've made graphics for the different pages. So if you have that creative side of you that you want to continue throughout engineering and you can't quite like do that through your classes in the same way that you want to, this is a great way to do it and get involved in the society and work on different projects like these, like the yearbook or making different graphics, or we have crafts reps, so they'll make decorations for our parties and things like that.
I really appreciate you bringing that up, Chloe, because I feel like art and engineering seem so separate until you really are involved outside of class. Like you said, there's lots of opportunities, but I feel like art is so much integrated right into engineering as well. When you're doing that design concept, we want to make sure people want to buy the products that we make. So I feel like art is a very important part of engineering, and you guys have all expressed that in different ways today, which I really appreciate. The next question, oh, sorry, did anyone else have anything they wanted to add? I don't want to cut anyone off. We're good? Okay, perfect. Awesome. We do have a question here about the support for women engineering. So the question is, what support does UBC offer for women in engineering? So if you guys, if you want to share support that you've experienced or different maybe clubs that you've joined or associations, feel free to guys unmute and share.
I can talk a little bit about like the Women in Engineering Club. I would assume it's pretty similar across both campuses, but the whole purpose of our club is to support women in engineering and sort of create a community between them. So we do a lot of like we'll do academic events like study sessions and just like group review sessions as well. But we also do a lot of smaller fun community events. Like we had a pottery night, we did like a jewelry making or a Lego event too. And those are just sort of to allow you to like meet other women in engineering and talk to older students or talk to students in your year over something that's a lot more casual. And then we also have a couple of bigger like mentorship events. So for example, we just last week we had our faculty time event, which brought together faculty and undergraduate students, and that was just to like create those connections and get students inspired by their faculty. So that's been a really good support and just like being able to meet people and just like find a community as a woman in engineering.
I think to continue with that for the UBC Vancouver Women in Eng, very, very similar, a lot of different events. We also tend to put on a lot of networking events. I'm sure Okanagan campus does as well, with the intention of letting current students also meet industry members. But other than that, very, very similar to the Okanagan Women in Eng. Additionally, I want to mention there's also Gears and Queers, which is another very similar kind of idea. Just another little community, puts on a lot of fun events in a very, very similar fashion. And then I think as well, personally, I have used, there is the UBC co-op administration. They are awesome for helping with everything related to industry and jobs, as well as a integrated counselor. If anyone is, overwhelmed or just needs someone to talk to, they are amazing there. And yeah.
Perfect. Thanks so much for sharing a little bit more about the women engineering clubs on campus and some of the other clubs and groups for underrepresented groups at our campuses. I appreciate you sharing. There's so many great events and programs. I know I see them come up on Instagram that the women engineering clubs are doing at both campuses. So if you are planning to attend UBC and engineering at either campus, I highly recommend connecting with those clubs because there's a lot of super fun things that they plan each year. The next question is sort of shifting back to academics. The question is about what the classes are like in first year in engineering. And specifically, were there any classes that were really difficult? And maybe if you could even share, like, how did you deal with that? Were there supports that on campus, or did you study with people, office hours? How did you work through those difficult courses?
I can start this one off. So the classes in first year, generally the class sizes will be about 250 people, like all the really big lecture halls. I don't really think I had any classes bigger than that unless it was online, in which you had all like 900 first years watching an online lecture at the same time sometimes. And then, but within those, like the lectures of the 250 people for those classes, you'll have studios or tutorials in which you're with smaller groups of maybe 30 to 40 students, and then you're working within your own group, which is about 6 students. So you do get a chance to like have a smaller classroom setting so that you're like the prof or the TA is more easily accessible, which really helps. As for courses that were challenging, at the campus, a course that I would say most first years find challenging is one called Phase 158. So it's circuits, electricity, and magnetism. And I would say it's the content is relatively challenging, but also at the same time, it's turned to a first year university and you're still getting used to studying and how university courses work. But again, like the undergraduate society offers tutoring sessions, the AMS for like offers tutoring sessions. I ended up using a service called WisePrep that was being promoted around campus as well, which helped me, and it was very course specific. And then office hours, some of these courses will have like question forums in which like the students will answer questions, students can answer questions. So just all of those resources kind of helped me get through that.
Thanks, Chloe. I appreciate you sharing your experience there. Lots of great resources, sounds like, on campus that students can choose from depending on sort of what help they're looking for or what tutoring they're looking for, math or writing or things like that. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to add for that question?
I can jump in if you guys want a UBCO perspective on it. Um, I think, yeah, I also remember EMEG, which would have been 178, I believe, being really challenging for a lot of people. I had a different experience. That was one of my favorite classes first year, in all honesty, which is what brought me into electrical engineering. But it was definitely very different from a lot of the things that we'd learned before. And there was a lot of application of complex math that we hadn't fully grasped in our other classes. So that made it pretty hard. I think the project-based courses are a challenge for a lot of people because it's a lot of teamwork and a lot of kind of throwing you in to figure it out while the school is definitely there to support you. And as long as the kind of that support's being taken advantage of, it's very doable. I loved 171, which was the SolidWorks design course. We worked on a research project involving hemp herd and road salt and the impacts of that in the environment. And I thought it was a really interesting course. It is a lot of work though. So balancing that with your general first year course load is really hard. I found a course called Statics, which was one APSC 180, to be really, really difficult. It was kind of a continuation of high school physics, I guess, with how things balance out when they're not in motion. And I had a really, really difficult time with that class. I think that's a pretty typical experience. But I don't I don't want to speak down on anything. I don't think there's such thing as an easy class in first year, but there's also no such thing as an impossible, totally difficult. Like there's no way you could ever do it first year course. It kind of depends on your personal experience, your general interests. There's going to be things that you love that your peers absolutely despise, and there's going to be things that you cannot get a grasp on and your peers will love. And I think that's really a strength of engineering, of if you guys band together and you work together, you can explain that course that you really get to your friend that doesn't, and then your friend can explain that course you hate to you in kind of return. So I think it's a very personal experience. Some classes are definitely generally harder than others, but there is only one way to tell what's hardest for you, and it's kind of to just get in there and do it, unfortunately.
Thanks, Noah. I really appreciate you also saying that some classes you excel at, other classes your friends excel at, and just reminding to, like have that teamwork, have those study groups, work together, because that's the whole point, right? Is that everyone's not good at everything, but when we work as a team, we can succeed, right? So I appreciate you guys sharing all that feedback. We are pretty much at time. So before I do my end slides here, I just was hoping each of you could provide maybe like a little piece of advice for people watching here today, a piece of advice for if they're joining us in September for their first year of engineering, something maybe you wish you could have told yourself when you're going into your first year. I will let you all choose who goes first, whoever maybe has that thought first, and then you each can unmute and add your own piece of advice.
I can.
Go ahead, yeah.
Thanks. Sorry. I think one piece of advice that I think I would have made a difference for me was if you're in the room, then you deserve to be there. Like once you get into a space, there's no more question about whether or not it's a fluke or if you deserve it or this or that. If you've gotten into that space, then there's a space for you there and you deserve it. And you're not taking advantage of anything or like it's not a fluke and you haven't just tricked everyone into thinking you deserve to be there. You really do. And that's something that you should try and remember because I know I definitely have a tough time remembering that sometimes. And I think another piece of advice would be you can do it, which sounds so simple, but like you really can. It's just hard, but it is possible. Like you can do it. So just try and keep that in mind.
I
Yeah,
think those are, oh.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I think that's really good advice, and I would have definitely appreciated hearing that in first year. I think number one for me would be just keep trying. There's definitely going to be times you're going to face a lot of failure. Chances are your grades might drop a bit, or you might fail a midterm. And as cheesy as it is, failure is not the end. It's just a matter of, are you going to persevere or not? And I think, yeah, just keep trying. You belong there. You're in the room. You might as well keep going.
I really agree with both of that as well. Yeah, like there's a lot of times since it is such a big change from high school that things are going to be challenging and you might be surprised with how difficult things are. But at the end of the day, you're not really here to like get good grades and you're more here to like learn how to solve problems. And that comes with failing on the first try or failing on like the 10th or 100th try. But then being able to pick yourself back up and being resilient is so important and such an important aspect of what engineers do. And your professors aren't trying to make you fail, but they're trying to help you learn that failure is a part of the process. So I think that's something important to remember. And then I always say for first years, just like get involved, just try your best to be a part of the community, to join clubs. I know that both UBC Okanagan and Vancouver, they host a big clubs fair at the beginning of the school year and also sometimes in January as well. So I would really recommend going to that and checking out what clubs are available on campus and also what supports are available. It's a really great way to make friends and find people that have similar interests.
I think most of my thoughts have been said. I agree with what everyone has said so far. But I'm gonna echo again the get involved piece. The thing that was intimidating for me entering first year was how to make friends and how to get that community. But I kind of just put my foot in the door, started out as a photographer for the undergrad society, and now I'm an executive. Or I just say hello to the person next to me in class, and now they're my roommate. And so it's like everyone is kind of in the same boat. Everyone's nervous, wants to make friends at the beginning. There's the club fair to there's like clubs for everything. So that like niche interest that you have in high school, where maybe only one other person in your school has, there's probably a group of like 40 people or more, or even like 100 people at UBC who have that interest and they've started a club for that. So that's the great thing about university is that there's so many people and you can just really find your community.
Thank you all for sharing that advice. And Chloe, you wrapped it up super nice there. Like what I was hearing is really you're going to be able to find your community here. There is a place for you here and you belong. No matter where you are, where you decide to go to engineering, you belong in engineering if you decided to be there. So just remember that. I think all of our panelists shared that today is you belong to be in the room, and don't forget that. So thank you all for sharing your advice today, for sharing your experiences. I'm going to attempt now to share my screen to do these last few slides. So let me just open this up here quickly. This is just a quick check. Heck, do you see my screen there? Looks okay? Perfect. Thank you so much for checking that for me. Awesome. So just as we wrap up today, we just want to go over a few things, ways that you can stay connected with us. Like Franco mentioned earlier, is you get a lot of emails from UBC, things about your application. You also get emails from us at UBC Engineering, sharing upcoming events. We also share links to things like Chat with a Student, things or other different groups like our Engineering Stories team we were talking about today with Nora. These are really great opportunities if you have questions about what is it like to be an engineering student at the Vancouver Okanagan campus. You can chat with one of our students. We have many students from both campuses there. If you want to see videos of our students on campus, check out our Engineering Stories team. We have students from both campuses that share different tidbits about what it's like to be an engineer. We also do have some upcoming events throughout April. In 2 weeks, we have a Meet Your First Year Professor event on April 16th. The registration is already open for that, so if you're interested, please feel free to register. Franco and I are hosting a drop-in session on April 29th, so if you have any questions about the engineering programs, please feel free to register for that and come and see us. Registration is required for that session, and it's open on our UBC Engineering events webpage. We'll add a link into the chat. If Franco hasn't already, he'll be doing that shortly. Then throughout April, we have UBC Welcomes You events across Canada and around the world. We're going to have representatives from UBC Engineering. Myself and Franco will be at some of them there to chat with you, answer any questions that you have. So feel free to go look through our events page to see if UBC has an event near you, if you can come and join us there. And then if you're just interested to learn more about our campus, there are in-person and virtual tours. So feel free to check those out if you want to see just more about the campuses in general. And so that's it for us today. This last slide has a whole bunch of links on it. It's a great reference slide. It has the u.ubc.ca webpage. That's for our any admissions or application type questions. We have our engineering web pages as well as our engineering stories team. If you want to get a hold of me for any questions about engineering at the Okanagan campus, you can email me at soe.advising@ubc.ca. If you have questions about engineering at the Vancouver campus, you can reach out to Franco at outreach@apsci.ubc.ca. So that's it for us today. I just want to say a big thank you to Chloe and Mehek and Nora and Ellie for being here again today and sharing your experiences. I also want to thank everyone who joined us here for today, taking the time to come chat with us and ask us your questions. We hope to see you all in September at either Vancouver or Okanagan campus. And thank you so much again. Bye, everyone.